Ready to go. Here we go.
Okay, so I am Fritzi Gros-Daillon, and I am the bearer of bad tidings. Your toaster is 1 day older. And so is your desk, your car, your house, you and me. Oops. That was my big dramatic opening. Sorry. I'm waiting for the round of applause here. So I am Fritzi Gros-Daillon, and I start with your toaster is 1 day older because toasters are relatively innocuous, but toasters don't get younger, and they in fact have an operable lifetime just like we do. And it's a way for us to begin a conversation with folks when we're talking about aging in a way that kind of elevates it away from some of the angst and the emotion at first. So in fact, Heather said my name beautifully, so I couldn't use my other name opening. I am an entrepreneur, and this kind of is a short history on this slide. I chose this picture in front of the door because you're all in real estate. And I thought, you know what, door works for real estate folks. So for many years on Long Island, and you may hear the Long Island kick in a little bit. So for over 20 years, I was involved with an environmental company and came to own it at the last 8 or 9 years. So my world was hazardous materials. I was in homes, commercials, industrial, hospitals. We did cleanups of all kinds, mold, asbestos, dry cleaning, gasoline. So I got to be very familiar with a wide variety of environments, including homes. In the middle of that time, actually in the fall of 2001, I started Transitions USA. And that was a senior move management company. It still exists today as Island Transitions. My manager took it over when I came to California. So Transitions USA in 2001 as a senior move management company was the first on the island, on Long Island. And truly, I thought I invented the industry. Okay, so turns out I didn't. There were about 45 people in the US doing it at that time. And senior move management is a business that helps people making transitions later in life from their home of probably many years into assisted living community, into smaller homes, and with family. And it can be local, it can be across the country, around the world if it needs to be. So during the time I was in that business as well, and we moved probably 1,000 people over those first 10 years, about 3 of them were really excited to move to assisted living. And everybody really wanted to stay home. So I knew when I was going to have an encore career in California, I wanted to be in the aging in place space. And I wanted to share the lessons that I had learned about those transitions and about families, generations, decisions, all of those components for what those decisions are really like for folks. So I came to California in 2012. Originally, the plan was to care for my mom, and she had passed before my move. So I am here now. I do aging in place consulting. As Heather said, I am a master instructor for NAHB on the CAPS course, Certified Aging in Place Specialist and Universal Design. Since 2016, I've also been working with Age Safe America and have developed an online certification course called the Senior Home Safety Specialist, which is a 5-hour course with a holistic look at senior safety and an emphasis on the evaluation of the home and assessment of the home itself. I also wrote a book, Grace and Grit, Insights to the Real-Life Challenges of Aging. And that's stories from my transitions days, as well as a chapter about my mom and her decision to age in place, and my transition from the moving world to the aging in place world myself. So it was fun to actually finish that project because I had carried it around on my laptop in a folder marked book for a long time. So it was fun to get that published. So let's jump in to the topic. This is a lovely time for me to say thank you very much to Heather and Dawn and the team, Eve, over on the side, and eXp for this opportunity to share information with you about aging in place as we are learning about it more and more. And then I'm going to hop into some specifics about the different generations and some design components and things we might want to be looking at in people's homes as well. So what is aging in place? Aging in place is living in the home of your choice, the home environment of your choice. So aging in your own home. And it can be anything. It can be the home in which you are now. It can be in different styles of housing as well. So we'll take a peek at that. But aging in place as vocabulary is just coming into its own. We've kind of begun to hit a tipping point, probably about, well, the tipping point started a little pre-COVID. And I will tell you that during the last 15 months, the change in how people are thinking about their homes, certainly in how people are using their homes, and looking at the multiple uses, and then how are we sharing our homes with extended families. So we have a lot of new changes, and we're going to touch on some of those as well. I would like to jump in here quickly and follow up on Heather's introduction as well in terms of the number of people, because she's told us now by 2050 that worldwide there'll be 1.5 billion people over the age of 65. I want to toss in at this point that at the same time, here in the US, we will have gone from 70,000 people over the age of 100 to 700,000 people over the age of 100. By 2050, we will have hundreds of thousands of people who are centenarians. Luckily, I'll be 99. I'm going to miss the boat. But I'm just tossing that out so we can see that not only are we going to continue to have lots of folks over 65, but folks are going to stay with us. So let's dive in a little bit more with information about some of the different generations, what they're looking at, and a little more. I'm just going to jump in here. So the first generation is our matures. The greatest generation, that is the other tagline for them. Their focus has always been related to task orientation. They have adapted to technology. And oftentimes you'll hear statistics about the fastest growing new users are folks over 70. Part of it is because younger users just use, right? So adapters tend to be our olders. Their entitlement, where they are, they have seniority, and as a result, they expect respect, right? They expect to be someone to be more deferential, very formal in their transactions. So you will, and I'm sure have seen this with a variety of clients, right? This is a group that expects good grammar in the letters, right? Clear communications. And as a population, they are ones that also follow the rules. So if this is the procedure, if these are the steps in the transaction, they will work with you on that. Now you also want to, this is kind of frames who they are in a world that would be transactional for us on the real estate side. We have our baby boomers, right? Don and I were having a talk before today and talking about the 10,000 people turning 65. Well, we've only got a couple more years of that, turning 65 every day, because frankly, the baby boomers, the early ones, are already 75, right? So they are an entirely different bunch. And the folks born in 46 are very different than the folks born in 64. So even marketing people, and I'm sure your speaker this afternoon will talk to some of those more clearly defined differences in this generation. Their focus is on relationships. They have acquired their technology. They have a breadth of experience, and many of us in this particular generation are not retiring or redefining retirement, encore careers, etc. So what matters to them is that they feel generationally that they are part of the team. So if you're working with someone, the team effort, like we're in this together, as well as paying distinct attention to what their needs and desires are, is one of the best ways to be able to communicate effectively across this group. They are also, besides having redefined retirement and some of the time deciding even not to, they also, as a generation, have inherited or earned more wealth than any generation before. So they are in a position with assets that are different than earlier generations. And depending on how efficiently they manage those assets, whether or not the generations behind them will have access to that as well. They're a complicated bunch. Then we have the X's and Y's, kind of the bridge generation. They, in fact, by 2018, had actually, in total numbers, taken over the number of baby boomers. They've been waiting for baby boomers to retire so they could move into those career paths. They assimilated technology into their space. Interestingly, on the communication side, very straightforward, but they don't like to be micromanaged. So give them a task, tell them what needs to be done. This is our role, this is our time frame, and then have at it. They're very interested in independence and whatever the latest technology is. So looking forward to working with this generation or this combination, these bridges, where are the opportunities for us to work in homes and add smart home features? This is the group that would look to add and enhance those technologies in the homes as well. And we have our millennials. I have one. I adore them. They grew up with the technology, right? It started when they were really young, and their desire is to make a contribution. You will see among this generation people making decisions about the social nature. They will buy products that they believe has a social consciousness, another focus. So these are young people who will look overall at companies and what they're doing and how they're doing it and what the other connections are that they have. So they have supported Zaffo shoes, right? Because they gave pairs of shoes away, and Tom's and Bombas socks, and companies like that that really were very clear about their social message have become very popular. So as we are looking to work with millennials, keeping that in mind and keeping in mind how it is with what we can do with them that says, this is how we as a business are contributing, or we as a local company are working in the community. This is where we're doing, and working with us is a benefit to the community in that way. Polite, respectful, clearly very tech oriented in terms of the messaging as well. And they surprisingly are very team oriented. People kind of assume sometimes that they're the isolated, it's all about me generation. But in fact, when they are working, they really want to be involved, and they want to see, again, interaction. Somebody's following up, asking what their opinion, working with them, and making those choices. So that's kind of a look at overall. We could have customers in any one of these frames of reference, but I think understanding, especially like we know, for example, the matures and their desire and expectation for respect, it's very different than millennials, right? You call a millennial by their first name. You don't dare call one a mature by their first name without asking permission. So again, just knowing who our customers are and some of the framework, some of the perspective with which they come to the market and to our transactions. Alrighty, so as well for aging in place, where are people going to age in place? The home environment of your choice. And so single family homes, right? Baby boomers, right? They own the most single family homes certainly in the US. Where else are we going to age in place? Multi-generational living. And that trend really grew almost exponentially with the pandemic, because people came to understand that the automatic decisions for older members of the family who may have been living alone, and people were concerned about their safety or security. A couple years ago, it was like, well, you know, mom will be home for a while and then she'll go to assisted living community. Well, yeah, maybe not so much. And now, as we're looking at providing homes and modifying homes or finding homes for families, we have more and more multi-generational homes. 7 of the top 10 markets are in California. Florida, New York are also big multi-generational family markets. ADUs, accessory dwelling units, again, been around for a long time. Granny flats, casitas, elder suites. When I lived on Long Island, people had basement conversions and someone rented the basement. So That was an ADU before ADUs had a name. But accessory dwelling units can be, in addition to a portion of someone's home or a garage conversion, or an attic or basement space conversion, it can be also an independent small home on the property. And here in California, there are many municipalities that are offering free floor plans, expanded permitting, expedited permitting, reduced permitting, because housing is such a crisis. So how does a family look at a property with an opportunity to have an ADU? Does an ADU become a rental? Does it become a rental now and then a place for a caregiver to live? A place for other family members to move to? And it's interesting because this is being used in a number of places as a wealth transfer technique. So building an ADU, the son, daughter-in-law may move in. The parents can then move in later into the ADU, and the young people can have the main house. So people are looking at using these for income now, income in the future, a whole range of possible uses for them. So again, where are we living and how long are we living there? We're now taking advantage of other styles of housing that we can have in the same space. Some of our other choices for aging in place are the independent living or CCRC communities. CCRCs are continuing care retirement communities. Oftentimes there is a buy-in up front and you move into an assisted living. It could be an apartment, a cottage, a small house on the property as well. And then as your needs change, you stay in the same community, but you could move to an assisted living apartment with some more care. And then depending on your ongoing health, or if there were to be ill health, and you might need skilled nursing, it's all built into the same community. And now many of those communities are adding dementia care because the rates at which people have begun to develop the dementias and Alzheimer's has been staggering. And so there's going to be a very big growth in the need for that kind of care. So someone could certainly age in place in independent living. There are separate assisted living communities. They have been called assisted living facilities, ALFs, for people who are in assisted living. Facility is their F word. They really work very hard to use community and not facility because of the word facility and what it means. Board and care are also called adult care homes as well. So those may be a smaller home, 6 to 10 residents, with assisted living, with meal preparation, common areas as well. So that's a different kind of an environment. And then for people with more major health needs, there's skilled nursing and dementia care as well. So what's interesting for us to look at it when we're looking at aging in place and how well people are going to be doing this, again, this is where financing comes into play and how we manage our assets. Because in fact, independent living, assisted living communities, skilled nursing, dementia care, most of those are private pay from our assets. So we have to help families understand the value of what they have and how to retain those assets when they're looking at making these kinds of changes as well. We want to make sure that it's the best choice for them. So actually, we can age in place anywhere. When are we going to be making decisions about this? We make decisions when there is a trigger event. Most of us who are well kind of procrastinate on all the big decisions in our lives. So when we have a personal or a family trigger event, or we witness one. So a friend's mom or dad has an incident, and I have a story to share. I met a man, Steve, and his wife, Barbara. Steve got up one night, went to the bathroom, tripped over his slippers, fell in the bathroom. Barbara couldn't get him up. Finally, she couldn't get him to squirm around, and he couldn't get up. And so she called 911, and they came and picked Steve up, took him to the hospital, checked him out, and he was fine. I mean, he had little cuts and bruises, but he was okay. When I met the family, the son was there, and he had decided, the son, that the parents were moving to assisted living because dad had taken this fall. And he said, Dad, you need to be in a safe place. So when I meet Steve and Barbara, Steve especially is just bewildered. He's like, I just tripped over my slippers. Why do I have to move out of my house I've been in for 45 years? It was just my slippers. And watching his bewilderment and frustration, Barbara's bewilderment and frustration, and the son really trying to do what he believed to be the best. Again, it was like at this opportunity, someone could have stopped and said, let's look at really just what happened. How can we mitigate that in the future before we move and go to this huge trigger event, sell this house, do this move, and just turn their lives upside down. So lots of kinds of things can happen, and it will cause people to think about, what am I going to do about aging in place? And what's the best way for me to do this? And in some cases, we may find that, yes, the big house is too big. I'd like to find a smaller house. I'd like to find a house on a single story, right? So, or maybe this is an opportunity for us to say, let's take a look at exactly where you are now and what are the things, and maybe plan, like, what's the time frame? When does it make sense for you to consider this in the future? All right, so I warned you that I do some design teaching here too. So as we're aging in place, we're going to look at some design categories that talk about the features of people's homes that can make it easier for aging in place. And from the real estate side, helping you to see things that will enhance how someone might live in the house, or would be a feature that you could promote and demonstrate in a house that would make it even more appealing for your clients. So the first is universal design, and there are 7 parts of it. This is a little, sorry, this is a little in depth, but it's to give you an idea. So universal design is really all of the elements that make it usable for people of all ages, all abilities. So equitable use is the first one. And so this is simply the automatic door, right? Anyone can get in and out of the automatic door. In fact, there are automatic door openers for homes. So someone with challenges can have that feature added to regular doors, as well as now sliding glass doors. The other feature is flexibility. Are we able to use something no matter whether we are right-handed or left-handed, as an example here? Simple and intuitive. And this is an interesting picture because this is a new feature in many public parks where there's an automatic emergency button so that anyone can essentially call 911 if there is an emergency. And many public parks are adding this the same way they have added AEDs in their space. Simple and perceptible. Again, that means that we can figure out what we need to get, how we need to get the information for that feature. Tolerance for error means we're not going to get hurt if we do something and if we make a mistake. Low physical effort means that we can use it easily, right? We don't have to be exceptionally strong. And so the levered door handle here is one of the best examples. So you can open it with your hand, your fist, if you need to, your elbow or your foot. And the other part of universal design is size and space for approach and use. So as we're looking at the spaces in someone's home, do we really have access to what that feature is? One of the reasons I first liked pedestal sinks so much as opposed to vanity sinks is there was just greater access to that. And now designers are moving to the wall hung sinks to give us even more access and make the floors easier to clean. So keeping in mind, we want to just be able to get to those features. Now, on the universal design space in someone's home, one example might be a motion activated faucet, right? Left-handed, right-handed, tall, short, young, old, anybody can get water out of the faucet. Adaptable design is the second category. And this is an example of an adaptable cabinet. So we have a wall hung sink, and adaptable means you can change it and change it back, right? So someone could have a vanity look here, but they could take it out if someone needed to have roll under access to the sink. But we look at adaptable design in lots of ways where we can make a change that either we see the change now or we can access that change later on, and it can be reverted. Another example might be simply removing a door, replacing it with a curtain, and then hanging the door back later. Accessible design is really those components for people with challenges. So this accessible design in this photograph was really for someone who is in a wheelchair in a bathroom. But the idea of the curbless shower works for everyone. You don't have to be in a wheelchair to take advantage of the curbless shower, right? Truly, only 10% of us will be in wheelchairs. So accessible design is really components that are designed for someone who is already uses a mobility device of some kind. But again, the wall hung sink, easy to use handles, right? This is where our universal components come in as well. Visitable design began to gain some popularity in the last few years. And visitable means you can get to the first floor of the home, right? So this one, they've got the concrete driveway, it rolls right up to the porch, go right into the house, right? There's no question. So visitable is making sure that anybody can come to visit the house. And again, for the folks who are looking for homes, then it's an interesting component to say, is your home visitable? And you know, this works for someone using a walker. This also works for someone pushing a stroller, right? A few steps in front of the house can be as much trouble for someone delivering a washing machine somebody having a child in a stroller, or somebody using a walker. All different reasons that the stairs are a challenge. So creating a visible design is a way to keep in mind that we can welcome people into our home in that way. The last is livable design, and this one has started to catch on. An architect in Northern California, Jeffrey Demure, has written a book on livable design and has his own website. And livable design basically says, not only do we have access to the main floor of the house, but it's actually livable for us. So we have features in the bathroom that we can use, the features in the kitchen. So this one has a lower counter here, right? It's got some cabinetry. We have some things stored at counter height. We have lots of sources of light in this room. We've got levered handles on the faucets. So again, we're making life easy no matter who is living in the home. And as we're looking at our clients, what are some of these things that will be in an opportunity to point out when we're in a sales transaction, right? If we're showing someone a home, keeping in mind that these features that may escape somebody, now you'll be able to point out work for visitability, work for livability, work for including everyone coming to the home. I've asked my students sometimes, who has a grandmother who won't come to visit because TSA makes her take off the shoes and airfare's too high and they took away her knitting needles 3 years ago, right? Well, grandma's not coming to visit you because she's having a hard time in your bathroom and she's having a hard time getting into the house. And she doesn't want to tell you. She'd rather send you money, have you go visit her in her house. So being able to talk to the visitability of the home, the livability of a home, expands our general purview of what our opportunities are. That was the big part of what I had to say. This is not just my summary, because I'm going to keep talking here for a few minutes. But yes, aging in place, we are all doing it. We are all doing it. And the more we accept it and then integrate fresh eyes in looking at the real estate, we need to acknowledge the challenges that people have, whether they acknowledge them or not. And as we meet people with, it's a little hard to hear, or a little challenge, I have to hold the paper, I don't want to put on my reading glasses yet, right? We have those challenges that we need to be sensitive to. All of the processes related to moving from a home, from a house, that we created the home by the patterns of our life, as the environmental gerontologists will tell us, to the idea that we now are going to create patterns again and recreate our lives in another space. So it can be overwhelming. People can have so many different kinds of emotions, and I'm sure there are senior real estate specialist classes on psychology. You must have CEUs on psychology, or you can teach them all yourselves. So, and one of my soapboxes is grab bars are the new seat belts. We all need them, whether we want them or not. So for your boomers, right, seat belts came out when we were learning to drive, buckled them up, we sat on them, stuffed them down the side, right? It was safer to be thrown from the car than buckle up. How crazy to be buckled up in a car, right? Well, sure, then there were fewer cars, not going as fast. So I guess if you were thrown, you'd survive better. But the fact of the matter is, seatbelts have saved lives. And all we're trying to do is suggest that it's a little piece of safety. If you never use it, you never use it, but it's there in case. All right, so questions? There's a few things going on in chat. And it's like, oh my God. And this is my contact information. So again, please feel free to email me as well, Fritzi at Household Guardians, any kinds of questions. I'm happy to answer them. And as I told Heather in class, I had a CAP student one time. She went out to Palm Desert, and she's in the bathroom of a client's house, and she texts me and she goes, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And she's texting me a picture and she goes, what do I tell them about this? You know, and I said, take a deep breath. I texted her an answer. And so, you know, you don't have to be someplace stuck in a bathroom trying to secretly text me. I'm happy to answer emails or phone calls or texts at any time anyway, with these kinds of questions or ideas about products or services as well. Okay, now I'm going to stop, Heather.
Thank you. There's actually a lot of people that have questions that were going on, and Rachel from our class is in here too, listening.
Oh, great!
So I love, yeah. Some of we sent a we had a CAPS class with Fritzi, and so we still keep in contact. And so Rachel's in our class, and she was answering some questions.
Oh, good.
So we do have so Christy asked, is there any research to explain why dementia has grown so rapidly?
So the answer is yes, I'm sure there is, and I can't quote you any. Part of it is simply with the aging population, it's happening. And the other piece is some of the chronic diseases, some of the chronic conditions also have a dementia component. And so people don't realize that. But for example, diabetes has a component where you can lose your sight completely. You can develop dementia for conditions. So the other components of diabetes, the neuropathies, the other things that go on with that condition are the ones that people are more familiar with. But that population can also add to the population of folks with dementias. And the same thing happens, for example, with Parkinson's. So we're familiar very often with the physical effects of Parkinson's, but in the long run as well, depending on the course that the disease takes, the condition takes with someone, there's also a dementia component to that. So I think there's a number of pieces that contribute: aging in general, yes, and then how things that we have not addressed on the other physical side have a surprising contribution to that total number.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Gary Harlow asked, are you using Universal Design Toolkit by Rosemary Rosetta, PhD?
Yes, her book is great. Rosemary and I have known each other for a couple of years, yes.
Okay, yeah. Gary, that and then Carla England says they need to make grab bars more attractive. And so even I sent her some links to the attractive grab bars that we all know about.
Great, great. Yeah. I mean, Ponte-Giulio does them in colors. Moen has, 200 lines now. Delta has some, Kohler, oil rubbed bronze, matte black.
Mm-hmm. And if you had come in kind of halfway through, we had talked about before the session that started about the new styles of grab bars that they have. And we're not talking just a towel bar. We're also talking toilet bar holders and other things that don't look like your standard grab
Right.
bars anymore. So
Yeah.
it's great.
In the shower, the corner soap dish
Mhm. They have a grab bar
um,
corner soap dish.
is a grab bar. You can also get the circular one around the water valve that it's like, oh, that's just part of the water valve. I mean, people don't even look at that
Yeah.
circle one, and that's right there to grab onto too. So
Yeah.
yeah, lots of choices, and where we know this market is going, and that's the little part I didn't do is we're in the longevity economy. And Joseph Coughlin's book really talks to that from the MIT Age Lab. But the longevity economy is really this huge space that boomers and beyond are going to create in the marketplace. And that's why manufacturers are now making more beautiful, more different finishes in the grab bars. That's why window manufacturers are changing the handles so that they're ergonomic and people of all ages can use the handles on the windows now. But that economy just says we're looking at trillions of dollars in possible product sales.
Well,
And so astute manufacturers are going to pick up on that and blow it up.
Well, it was interesting. I was listening to Dr. Coughlin's podcast, and basically he was talking about how you get the younger generation doing all of these things for the older generation. And when the self-driving cars were coming out, they called him in to look at it. And he said there were too many bells and whistles going on. Nobody's going to want to do this. It needs to be less buttons. And his book is amazing. I really, it's eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a great book.
So does anybody else have any questions for Fritzi before we end and take a 15-minute break? And then we'll come back to our next guest. Any questions? You can hop on.
We got 7 more minutes. There's plenty of questions. What is that book Terry was asking?
The book is The Longevity Economy by Joseph Coughlin.
Eve put it in the chat box
chat.
for anybody that wants to see right above Terry's.
Yeah. And years ago, Mary Furlong wrote a book called Turning Silver into Gold. And that was an early look at boomers were going to be called silvers because the greatest generation was the golden years, and that's kind of lost its words in the vocabulary right now. So, but yeah, Turning Silver into Gold talks about marketing to this from an earlier point of view, and Joseph Coughlin identified the consumer that people need in a focus group for product, and the consumer of the future is a 64-year-old woman. She's going to drive remodeling decisions, purchasing decisions. So just as a heads up, everybody.
So talking about that, let's talk about where, you and I were talking the other day about where developers and builders are falling short. Talk about that if you could for just a few minutes.
Okay. So yeah, it's interesting. And I saw a Canadian study where they put 8 features, aging in place features, into a home when they started, and it only increased the cost $800. Right? So it's easier to do than people think about. But yes, so some developers are continuing to build the way they always have. The 55 and over community in which I live has wide doorways everywhere except to the bathroom. right? The bathroom is still 28 inches. And they're still designing bathrooms with the little commode room for privacy. Can't get in there if you're not able to walk in easily. So the ones that are designing, for example, with elevators, many communities now will have a 55 and over group of homes that will include an elevator, because with the price of land, they have to build multi-story. But this is not, the presumption is that wider hallways are not going to work. So open floor plan works great, right? And that's what Jeffrey Delmure's book, Livable Design, talks about, is it really can work for everyone. But right now, yeah, builders aren't embracing this. And I think the universal design folks have been, kind of banging their heads up against the wall for a long time about it. Because it just, the difference in the cost of a 28-inch door and a 32-inch door is a small price to pay for broadening the audience of home buyers. Yeah. But it was interesting. I did talk to a developer who came out of class in Texas, and he had 40 acres, and he wanted to design a community that would be essentially livable design, accessible design without, it was really universal design. I mean, he was trying to figure out what, and I said, just build a universal house. So, we talked about what the development might look like, and he was kind of well on his way. And then there were some COVID things that happened. So the project, but at least, there was somebody who was looking to build X number of homes with this in mind. And it's entirely possible when the demand picks up for that builders will be able to do that. But right now, builders are up against it between lumber prices and supply chain issues. And yeah, if we want to ask them to also now build a livable design, they're going to pull what remaining hair is out of their heads. I mean, this is a tough time. We're in a kind of a huge transition to where we're never going back. Like we didn't really ever go back after 9/11, right? The world was always different after that. We got TSA, whatever else we got after that. So post this last 18 months, we're not going back to that. We're going to be creating new spaces. And I think this is where the opportunities are for fresh looks at homes, fresh looks at incorporating families, fresh looks at flex spaces in homes and adaptable spaces in the homes. I said, I think that if we look at this as a place for us to now say, what is the way of life we want, and using the word normal, I don't know, I'm not excited about the phrase the new normal, because the world is never normal for everybody. It's only normal for what you think your world is. So I think we have an opportunity now to create where it is and how it is that we want to move forward. And we have the buying power to make those decisions, to be buying the soap dishes and to be, buying those accessories and getting them into our houses. Is that soapboxy?
No, it was inspirational. We're going to wrap it up because we're
Okay.
going to take a little break and on to our next speaker. But I, from the bottom of my heart, can't thank you enough for coming in to speak to us. And anybody that is interested in CAP certification or universal design certification, reach out to Fritzi. She'll talk to you about it and she'll answer whatever questions. Check the screen out, take a screenshot. That's her information. and tell her that Heather and Eve sent you.
And Rachel, come on.
And Rachel, and
We gotta
Rachel's
give
on
Rachel
here.
some love here.
Yes, Rachel's on here too. Rachel, hi.
Well, I'm here to give you all guys just wonderful love. Such a wonderful presentation. And I'm just so excited to see what Heather's doing too with this group. It's really wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
terrific.
thank you again, Fritzi. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Fritzi.
Right.
It's opened up my eyes on several things, and I appreciate that so much. This
Oh,
is
I'm glad. I'm
Well,
glad. Thank you.
my camera's off.
Thank you, everyone. We're taking a short 15-minute break while the next speaker comes in and we get things moving in that direction. So 12:45, we'll be back live.
That's
Thank you.
12:45 Eastern time.
And I forget, Eastern time, correct.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
You're all
Thank
good.
you. Wonderful
was great.
presentation.
Thanks.
Thanks.